This classic whistle-stop presentation is brought to you by Out West. Love the West? So do we. Click the icon or go to scvoutwest.com.
Our next stop is Disneyland, USA, where we see a contrast in transportation. Vintage steam locomotives and a monorail system that can be used today in cities with congested traffic problems. In 1985, Disneyland celebrated its 30th year of truly being Walt Disney's dream come true, the happiest place on earth. Throughout his life, Walt Disney loved trains. He was fascinated by the great iron locomotives that sped across the Missouri prairies of his boyhood. It came as no surprise then that Walt's lifelong fascination for riding the rails would be an integral part of Disneyland. There are some who suspect Walt built his famed Magic Kingdom as an excuse for expanding his train hobby. Boarding one of the 4 colorful trains in Disneyland is not just hopping aboard a train. It's actually stepping into a pioneer of early railroad history. It's experiencing a steam train ride of the past at a time when the West was just really beginning to grow. After more than 3 decades of service, the trains still have a brand new look. Daily maintenance includes washing, paint touch-up, lubrication, and hand polishing of all fittings. Once a year, each engine is dismantled for a thorough overhaul. Both locomotives and rolling stock are completely repainted annually.
Report.
The Disneyland Railroad is a complete line with automatic block signals all along the route, crossing gates, warning lights and bells, and a rectangular roundhouse where each train is carefully washed and polished every night. With so much use, the trains must be kept always in top condition. The maintenance team, headed since 1961 by Ken Kohler, does just that, servicing each train thoroughly on a rotating basis. The train's gleaming appearances and smooth performances are quite a matter of pride. The whistle-stop crew got to the park early one morning to meet with Ken Kohler, who not only is in charge of the locomotives, but also the monorail maintenance shop located above the roundhouse. The facility northeast of It's a Small World was constructed in 1966. Ken gave us a brief history of their stable of locomotives.
The Fred Gurley that you're looking at right now is actually an 1894 Baldwin locomotive. We bought her, brought her in here and refurbished her and put her in service in 1958 along with the opening of the Grand Canyon diorama. She came to us actually off from a plantation. We're used to haul sugarcane in the south. Great little locomotive. It's a solid frame. The tender's on board for the fuel and the water. It's a number 2 diesel oil, and it'll run a good 8-hour shift, 10-hour shift without refueling. This locomotive, the E.P. Ripley, is locomotive number 2. This is one of the 2 locomotives that were built at Walt Disney Studio prior to park opening in 1955. It was a situation where Walt had asked if locomotives could be built at the studio, and the man in charge of the machine shop was a man by the name of Roger Brogy. He said definitely. So they made their own castings, did their own machine work, and that's where number 1 and number 2 locomotives came from. They are a replica of the locomotives around the turn of the century, what they were designed after. It also is a diesel-burning locomotive. Difference being it has a tender that it tows along instead of being on the same frame. The difference between number 1 and number 2 locomotive is basically in the stack. The number 1 locomotive is what you call a diamond stack. and of course the color being different. The number 4 locomotive here is the Ernest S. Marsh. Is a 1925 Baldwin locomotive that we bought out of a quarry. That time she came to us with saddleback over the boiler that carried its water and fuel. We took it to the studio and refurbished it, took the saddle off, new boiler on, threw the running gears, built a tender for her, and put her in service in 1961. She also carries a diamond stack much smaller than the one on number 1. Yes, there's 4 engines and 4 different coach setups. We have what we call the Holiday Green, Holiday Blue, Holiday Red. All of those are identified by the striped canvas tops that they have on. And then we have the excursion train, which actually represents an old excursion type train used in the South many years ago.
Walt felt that the enclosed cars with their framed windows offered too limited a view of his Grand Canyon diorama and primeval world attraction. So they were thereafter used only occasionally in inclement weather. Originally named the Santa Fe and Disneyland Railroad, the line's first 2 locomotives were named for 2 important figures in the railway's history, C.K. Holliday and E.P. Ripley, respectively, the founder and early president of the Santa Fe Railroad. Even though the physical fabrication of the wheels, frames, boilers, and other fixtures was done by outside contractors, every detail was meticulously designed and rendered at the Disney studio. Final assembly of all components was done at Disneyland. Authentic in every detail, from a brass guide on the cowcatcher to a shiny brass whistle atop the steam domes, the 15-ton engines are among the most colorful ever run on a regular schedule. In their only bow to modern railroading, the engines gave up wood-burning fireboxes in favor of oil flames, but the plumes of white vapor still provide an explosive thrill as firemen perform the ancient ritual of blowing down to clear the boiler. Old-timers and children alike watch in awe as the lustrous engines with flashing red wheels come rolling into the old-fashioned brick station on Main Street. On the spur track adjacent to the station is an authentic handcar that was a gift to Walt from the Kalamazoo Manufacturing Company of Kalamazoo, Michigan. The benches located throughout the lobby and the waiting area are reminiscent of a bygone era. On Disneyland steam trains, adults relive memories of train rides of the past, while freeway-oriented youngsters experience travel as it was in a bygone era. Frontierland Station reveals a composite of many early frontier train stations. The sound of an old telegraph key clicking out messages can be heard through the open window of the station. To the left of the passenger depot is a train order signal. This type of signal is used to tell the engineer if there is a change in the train's orders, or if there are any passengers or mail to be picked up at the station. This signal was given to the park in 1962 by William White, board chairman of the Delaware and Hudson Railroad Corporation. To the right of the freight station is the water tower, where the steam trains stop every few hours to take on water. One car from the old train returned to the rails in 1976, but in a much grander style than before. Under the direction of Bill Cottrell, the outmoded observation car became the sumptuous Lily Bell, bicentennial special and presidential car of the Disneyland Railroad. Often seen but rarely experienced, the Lily Bell seats some 16 guests comfortably on chairs and settee upholstered in burgundy crushed velvet. Live palms, silk roses, brass fixtures, stained glass skylights, and ornate parquet woodwork ornament the car, which, though in service daily, is reserved for prearranged VIPs. On Disneyland's opening day, Walt Disney himself was at the throttle, along with California Governor Goodwin Knight and Fred Gurley, president of the Santa Fe Railroad. The Disneyland trains are the dreams and reflections of Walt Disney's love for trains, an interest that dates from his days as a news butcher on the Santa Fe between Kansas City and Jefferson City, Missouri.
Don't go away, there's another part to this presentation brought to you by Out West. Shop, look, and listen right here at WhistleStopUSATV.com.